So they want people to sign up if they're missing.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, March 4th. We're at Appleseed. If everyone would please stand and say the pledge of allegiance. Be outside.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Going to read our school committee statement. The committee represents the needs of all Leominster Public School students and places their interest above all others. We will exercise leadership, adhere to our protocols, and base our decisions upon a reasoned assessment of all available information. We will advocate for each of our schools and support high-quality public education in Leominster. And I just wanted to remind the audience that if anyone is planning to videotape any portion of this meeting, you need to make that announcement prior to doing so. Having said that, we'll move to our public comment. And all right, Carrie Polson, please step forward. Everyone, please state your name and address for the record. And everyone will be given a 2-minute time frame. So Chris will buzz you if you go beyond that.
She won't really buzz.
I remember last time. 2 minutes. So I have a little nervousness.
Sure.
Okay, my name is Carrie Olson. I live at 142 Water Street in Leominster. As we've all heard, several students and family members speak on behalf of LCE. I'm not only here on behalf of my daughter, all LCE students and faculty and future students. As I stated in previous meetings, I know this is about closing
Could you,
LCE.
I'm going to stop you for just a second. Can you move the microphone closer to you and just make sure it's on, because folks in the back aren't able to hear you. So there's a button on the top. No, just keep continuing, but I just,
She paused your timer though.
Okay. As I've stated in previous meetings, we know this isn't about closing LCE. This meeting should only be about the students at LCE, its location, and how we don't want it to be relocated. When we met previously with Paula Deacon at LCE and also at the school board meeting, money was brought up. Finances, I'm not sure where it went from there. We talked about not having enough space for more students, yet there's a whole nother section at LCE attached to the classes that they have now that can be subdivided into 4 or 5 classrooms, which would easily facilitate 60 students. So why can't we expand into that? You also stated that no one had spoken to Mr. Whitney yet regarding the lease at that time, which leaves several questions unanswered. One, will he let us re-sign for a longer period of time? 2, how much more would it cost if we expanded into the other section, or would he lengthen the lease possibly with that? Maybe we can come up with a different price for more space. Could CTI students subdivide the space so that we could save money? I believe many questions need to be answered prior to making a decision, a permanent decision, that will not only affect the students, but their families and faculty as well. So please take this into consideration before making any decisions. Thank you.
would anybody else like to address the committee? Please step forward.
Hello. My name is Jason Jefferson. I live on 214 Pleasant Street in Leominster, Massachusetts. At the last meeting where the voting was originally supposed to occur, there was some information on what actually goes on at Leominster Center for Excellence. We have a guidance counselor who's very good at her job. There are kids that attend band at LHS, and most of the other programs are open to us as well. Knowing this negates many of the positives of moving our location into the other school. And the only thing that remains that would serve us well is the convenience of having them closer. But the positives of remaining at our current location still very well outweigh the positives of being at LHS. By staying on 98 Adams Street, we will still have access to activities such as the YMCA and easier access to the Leominster Public Library, while still having access to what the other school has to offer. Also, I heard at the last meeting that having LCE students at LHS will inspire confidence in them. My peers and I learn confidence through real-world experiences at internships where we interact with adults and learn to use social skills that we can apply to our lives after we graduate. Interacting with high school students only serves us for our high school lives. However, I also heard someone say money is a finite resource, and that's objectively true. I don't know how much money is involved in this, and I'm not trying to change anyone's minds. But I just want you to understand the moral burden of limiting these children's education and to wonder if the amount of money is worth it or even necessary, because there's money to lose if too many kids drop out due to the needs not being met. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address the committee?
Austin, 32 Summer Street, Leominster. My daughter attends LCE. I've been doing a little bit of research on when you guys created the program and at the school, because a lot of the research I've been doing is coming off as a program. And I think the main problem is if you move them, if you move them to LHS, I don't think it's going to be seen as a school. And it's part of the bigger learning picture. And it's the first one in Massachusetts. And obviously you have students that are on waiting lists because you can't accommodate them right now. I think that they should stay here for another year until you guys can maybe potentially find another building that they could be permanently that could accommodate a bigger amount of children. Each school, they need to provide a safe and supportive learning environment that's key to helping students develop essential skills and knowledge and is necessary for college and career readiness. If the school is moved, student comfort levels will go down and they will be left with less confidence. Students in LC know that they can attend activities at LHS. A lot of art, I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but there's a lot of art, music. They go to the Y, they go to the walk, to the park, they do the library. It's in a really good location, even if some people have to use public transportation. And I think if the whole school idea, I think it would turn into a program if it came to LHS. And a lot of students probably would get made fun of. Social media is a big thing now, so people are going to down school, and a lot of kids, I feel, won't want to attend the school, and it won't get the acknowledgement or the credentials that it needs to succeed in going to other cities and other towns. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address the committee? Second time, would anybody else like to address the committee? And one final last time, would anybody like to address the committee? If not, this portion of the meeting is closed. And we're going to move to communications superintendent.
There are no communications this evening.
Student superintendent's report, please.
So much happening. Congratulations, seniors, for finally pulling off their first snow day. To say I wasn't bullied into this would be an understatement, so I'm going for prom queen, that's all I have to say on that one. With that being said, graduation is less than 3 months away, June 1st. Time is flying. With today's snow day, it puts us out to Friday, June 14th for the district to close out FY19. So stay tuned, there is a ton going on the next 3 months. We are also pushing out K registration. Spots are filling up. We are nonstop. We may add some additional times. We have evening hours and we have daytime hours. If we need to go onto the weekends, We will. Parents have been very responsive, so if you or someone you know it needs to register their child for K, please do so sooner rather than later. Our theater team this week has advanced to the next stage in the finals. They have 2 performances, one tomorrow and one Thursday at 7 o'clock. I've been told it's about a 40-minute performance, and it's very moving. It's The Girl in the White Pinafore. I hear it's sad. You don't want to be sad, but the acting is tremendous. So if you have time, 7 o'clock in the auditorium, please, Tuesday or Thursday, try to attend. And Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you. This week, 250 Chromebooks came into Leominster High School with an additional 100 that we purchased through Relief Aid to watch students and staff work together to unbox, program, what did you call your lead guy, the pit boss? We actually had a pit boss who was a sophomore that kept the productivity going. We are running infrastructure trials for state assessment starting this week and next week here at the high school. So we needed to get those pieces in the students' hands. So again, thank you for your efforts. It was really appreciated, and they're here. Lastly, March 11th is a half day. I hope you have the updated schedule. It's a half day of school. The high school will be participating in their infrastructure trial. So watch the times. If for some reason, this is really important, if there is a change in your child's dismissal pattern, please let the school know. We do not want children locked out of their homes, not sure where they're going. If there's somehow the schools can accommodate you, please just let us know, and we will make sure that your child is safe at the end of the day. But typical dismissal procedures for Monday, March 11th. And lastly, we have the LEF dinner coming up in March. School committee members, just want to let you know that your invitations are in the mail. It was a great showing last year, and the nominees this year should be hugely entertaining. So we hope to see everybody there and get the community support as well. All this funding goes back to either scholarships, students' initiatives, classroom initiatives, so this is a great participation. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Superintendent. We're going to move down to the LCE Task Force recommendation and vote.
May I ask the administration? This evening we have the trifecta in the room. We've been meeting and talking and planning and thinking where we're going. And when I look at these 3 leaders, I'm very proud to have them at the table. First and foremost, I want to thank you, Mrs. Duff, for being here this evening. She is on an absence, but has been in constant communication. Stephen.
That was a pit boss.
Trying
to hide over here.
It didn't work out.
Renee, what did you touch?
She's paying for everything. So we've been talking, and right here, this is a very dynamic, diverse team. When I look at their skill sets as leaders, we have Carrie, who is so creative outside the box. She just knows how to get planning done. We have our psychologist, our SEL king, Dr. Dobzinski, and then we have our CTI. For me, these 3 sitting together at the table, pretty much the first time we've done careful planning like this. So this excites me to have this team backing every one of our high school students. So they wanted to come forward as a team. There were some questions and concerns that were raised at the last meeting, so we just want to answer those and try to move forward, because our goal is to move forward with either the school committee's recommendation for an RFP process or an LHS campus type with 3 separate schools on one campus with this leadership team behind it. We have to make a move so that we can start planning and move forward.
Okay, so I'll start, and then I'll pass along to whoever needs to speak. I just want to say this has been a very lengthy process, from meetings that started, I believe, in November or December, that some of us were part of, to the discussion last week, last school committee meeting, to the meetings that have taken place at LCE, to final culmination Friday morning, where the three of us met with the superintendent to kind of put forth our thoughts, questions, concerns that we may have. I'm very excited if it ends up at Leominster High School. And I'm not only excited, I'm in strong favor of it coming to the high school. And so it's a very quick PowerPoint presentation, which I hope everybody can see. I'm going to highlight, hopefully, the positives. Mr. Fiandaca and Dr. Duff will be sitting and adding what we need to. I know it's small print, my apologies, so I'll read it to you. For me, or for us, and when I say us, I want you to know that adding a third school here is simply that. I think it's an unbelievable opportunity. For us, it's a fresh new space. For you guys that are coming back to the high school or maybe stepping foot into the high school for the first time, it is a fresh area, and I think it's an area that you're more than welcome to come up and see anytime, and we hope to host an open house if it goes in that direction to create the space that is there now and to reconfigure it as needed. There is indoor and outdoor meeting space. One of the questions that came up last week was the community time or the meeting time in open space is a big concern. For us, I think there's plenty of outdoor space needed in good weather, and there is space that can be created. If not, the lower cafeteria is right off the back entrance of where we would meet, and it is probably a 20-step walk to go ahead and meet there. The area is occupied 88 minutes a day. That's the only limitation that we would have. Also, lunch, I think, was a question for some people. Full disclosure, Wendy could not make the tour this evening, so she came up on Friday. And I just need to tell you, she came up with questions from the students at LCE, so hopefully we have answered a lot of them. I think it's good to have that availability of the cafeteria right there, not only for meeting space, but also for lunchtime. If they choose to eat there, great. If they choose to eat back at what will be the LCE wing, I think that's fantastic too. I think it's another option. The third bullet point, it is the third school on campus. We have Leominster High School, we have CTEI, and now we would have LCE. The more the merrier for us. And I just think beg, borrow, and steal from each other, and it creates more and more opportunities for everybody, which is the fourth bullet point. Whether it's us stealing from you, you borrowing from us, or us begging from Mr. Fiandaca, the ability to learn from each other, create from each other, borrow from each other, whether it's art classes, CTI courses, the internships, the externships. Mr. McCaughey, who is leading our alt ed program right now at the high school, and mostly is for credit recovery, is so excited about learning about the internships from the current students at LCE. And finally, that last piece, it is an excited partner. I know there are concerns. We don't bury our head in the sand and say that there aren't problems at Leominster High School. Okay, we identify them, we deal with them, and we would do the same thing if problems arise with our new partners. But we are very, very positive about this, and we're excited about the possible transition. What's not new? Programmatically and structure-wise, there's nothing new. It's going to be the same day, same hours, same schedule, same coming and going, same staff. So I think we're just picking it up and moving it to a new location, if that is the case. There would be a private entrance. You could come and go as you please, like you do now. The availability, and we'll look at the plans in just a second, but I think there could be two possible locations to enter. One would be more well-known as the flagpole entrance, and the other would be the gym entrance, which we just toured earlier tonight. But you would have your own private entrance, your own door. As someone said, a mother of three drops off three different kids. One's going to high school that entrance, one's going to CTI down this entrance, and one's going to the LCE entrance out back. And we would really, really welcome those opportunities. Programmatically, I don't see anything changing whatsoever. And we've talked about this, the three of us here with the superintendent. I just see the program staying exactly where it is. And what is the most important thing for us, what will not change, is the individualization. It is your school. You have created it, you have built it, you have pride in it, and we don't want to take that away. That's not the intent of this move whatsoever. It is more inclusivity than seclusion. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, Bob the Builder, because he's my plans man.
Like a map.
Okay, so this is Bob now. I'd like to talk a little bit about the space that we could turn over to LCE on our campus. And Steve talked about having 2 entrances for students to come into this part of the school. I'd like to call your attention to the drawing in the bottom left-hand corner, right next to the logo. You see a double door sticking out. That's the entrance that we would devote to LCE. And we can put the signs on the doors just like we did at the present LCE location, and signs over the doors like we did at the LCE present location. And students could enter this area through those double doors and then right into what we have labeled E317. E313B is an office area that could be maintained as an office area. E313B, the big area, that's the present studio for the TV program. And then E11 is at the end of that hallway, and that's another big room. So the amount of room that the students would have would be sufficient. The second thing I think that really makes sense to me is the fact, I'll just tell you a little story. We had a student who was got into the carpentry program and made it into a sophomore year, and then one day came to us and said, I don't think I really want to be here. And so we talked to his parents, and the student left and went back to the regular academic high school. A year later, the student came back with his parents and said, gee, we made a mistake, we'd like to get back into the program. And so we said, well, you missed a whole year, you're kind of behind. Even though you're a junior now, you missed a whole sophomore year. So we talked about it some more, and we let him come back in with the stipulation that he spend time with the sophomores, get caught up with the sophomores, and then go out to the job site and start working with the upperclassmen. The long story short is that upon graduation, he joined the Carpenters Union. He works for Red Lion Construction now. He has a wonderful job, and they want to send him to school to learn more things. And I think about some of the students at LCE, and I wonder if perhaps the skills that they have, they might not want to try their hand at our graphics department, one of our construction departments, our auto departments, one of our computer labs. I don't know, something that interests them. And recently we have been putting many students out on co-op, and it has created a little bit of a problem. So that if you have 16 electricians in your senior class and 8 of them are on co-op, all of a sudden you've only got 8 students in the senior class that are showing up every day to come to work or to come to school. And so we have openings. So if a student comes to us and says, gee, you know, I kind of missed the boat, I'd like to get a little bit of training, maybe in electrical work. Do you think you could fit me in? Our teachers have been glad to take people on board, even though they weren't there in their freshman year or their sophomore year or even their junior year. This year, in some of the transfer students that we've taken from West Boylston, we agreed to take in one 11th grader and one 10th grader because they expressed a deep desire to be here. We looked at their records, and everything looked good, so they're presently doing very well. One is in plumbing and the other one is in carpentry. So this is an opportunity that would be readily available to these students that come to us and join us here at this complex. I think I'm done.
Thank you.
Do you have more slides?
I have one more. Sure, okay. Again, that is the actual current structure of it right now. If you look in E313B and E310, there is another office adjacent to that current office that is listed. We removed it just for space purposes. Superintendent Deacon, I don't have the numbers in front of me in terms of space that they have now compared to space that's available.
Classroom space is about 2,300 square feet. We're just shy of 4,000
Okay,
square feet.
so there's room for expansion as well, if needed. Okay. Mr. Ramoni, thank you very much. You can go two, I think. So to wrap this up, for me, it's a combined effort, and it has been a combined effort by all stakeholders to ensure a successful transition and a great opportunity for all students in our city. And I think that's our main purpose, to try and meet the needs of every student that lives in Leominster. We happen to have book club at the principals meeting, and there was a great quote that came out last time, and we talked a lot about it at the last meeting. It was sorting students has always been easier than teaching them, and I think that is best. I think that rings true with this discussion. So I wanted to include that. So I will now turn it over. You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm sorry I've been absent physically from this process, but I've been following along and reading notes from meetings and been in touch with folks. I want to say, for starters, that I have worked with Dr. Dubs and Mr. Kindaga for quite some time, and I have no doubts about our ability to collaborate and to work together, and the level of respect that they have for our program, our pathway, and the culture of our school, which is so important to us. I also want to recognize that Paula mentioned to me the other day that I missed the evaluation process for principals. One of my goals this year was around helping student agency and helping students find their voice. And if you want to evaluate me right now, I think that this process over the past few months has shown that we have some really wonderful young people in our program who have some really thoughtful opinions and a real willingness to build the community that they hope to have in their education. And I'm very proud of them, and I'm very proud of their teachers for coaching them in that. This decision is clearly, it's not my decision to make, but I will continue to work as hard as I possibly can to create the kind of learning opportunities that we have for our students that are based entirely in community, for starters. Our tenets are about relationships and relevance and rigor. And the relationships start for students in their advisories with their advisors, and then kind of we come together as an entire school and a community. And the relevance piece comes in supporting students to follow their passions and their interests and in the real world, and to be working on solving real world problems, starting right in the 9th grade. And then the rigor that comes from the learning that they're needing to do. You know, if kids are working on a real world problem, rigor is, okay, so what do I need to do next to take this to the next level? What do I need to learn in order to be able to solve this? So that's in essence kind of what we're about. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to our students and families throughout this process, and for my colleagues at the high school and at central office for being thoughtful about our needs in this journey. By the way, while I wasn't there, I have been on the world's most in-depth medical internship for the last 5 months. I'll be getting my medical degree in May.
So if you have any questions, we have the team here. Wendy?
So I just want to say that I took the fact that we were having this vote today very seriously, so I couldn't be here tonight earlier, as Steph said, for the tour, so I came up here and saw the space, and I got to spend some time with the students at LCE to hear them and what their concerns were, so that I could make a vote tonight with all of the information I needed, so that I didn't feel like anything was, and thank you for taking the time to show me, but I think I feel like you heard some of the concerns I shared with you because I heard some of that in the presentation tonight. And I just want to reiterate what Carrie was saying about the real world things. I had a chance to meet a young student who was interested in cooking. So he had been using their kitchen to learn to cook, and then his real world project was to teach himself to cook, to care for himself, but then he was able to turn that around and give back to his community by cooking for Carrie and her daughter while they were going through stuff. So these are things that go beyond just learning how to do something, but how to be part of a community. And so my biggest concern going forward, though, is that this is a finite amount of space, and we're in a really bad catch-22 with this school, because we need money to grow, but they need to grow to, because one of the goals was to bring in tuition students the same way you're doing over at CTEI. So my biggest concern is that this is a finite amount of space, and I'm worried that in a year or so, we're going to be back here again, trying to figure out how we grow. And I'm quite concerned about that. But a lot of the other questions were answered, things like the common space and having enough bathrooms and gender-neutral bathrooms and being able to be either separate or together. So I'm glad to know that that stuff was hers. But my biggest concern still is the ability to grow beyond the space that's there, because it's a big building. So that's going to have to play a part of my vote.
Mike, do you have anything that you want to ask? Just going to go around.
I think my questions are
Okay. Dean?
Sure. First of all, Carrie, I think you said it perfectly. All the students that I interacted with, you should be, as their leader and principal, extremely proud of every single one of them. They are thoughtful, good listeners. I think if that's the lesson they were taught, how to interact, build relationships, listen to somebody else's opinion but share theirs in a respectful, thoughtful manner, they get a doctorate's degree. The students that I had the chance to interact with, or talk to, or emailed, or texted, or made appointments, and came in, I have nothing negative to say at all, nothing, just one better student, one better human being after another, and the world needs more of them. So let's just start off with that, because I'm impressed.
Thank you.
And so all of those words like inspiring and thoughtfulness, confident, good listeners, articulate, bright, kind, and respectful, that's just a sample of some of the words that I would use. Kind of torn on this one. I think I asked while I was operating remotely as I was driving down the Mass Pike, almost here last time, that if this was sort of a financial issue, and I thought I heard it, maybe I didn't quite hear it because I would go in and out on occasion. Is this we don't have the money to run the program? I thought the rent was around $50,000.
Yeah,
but it wasn't an issue.
No, it's really about the level of resources and who can have access to this. It would be a tremendous burden if we had to hire ELL teachers, expand space. I mean, we're probably looking at an additional $1 million. There are students who can't be a part of it. Carrie has come to me every year and said, "Well, I need this, I need these people, and I go, oh, hold on, we just can't." And so the program is on the precipice of, it's ready to go. It is ready to go. And that's why this fight this year is not about whether this is a viable program or not. The celebration is, yeah, this is a good program. What our students are turning out, they've proven it. They've dug their heels in and said, this school has a shelf and it's a life, but more students need to be a part of it. So students would have to opt out of other services at the high school to participate moving forward to grow this. So we just want to make it accessible for everyone. Everybody can have a BCBA or an ELL course or a second language or an art class and not have to worry about it. So it's step one.
So I just want to understand. So if you maintain just status quo, what you're doing already, you're saying you need another $1 million just to do that?
Staffing
To
and
staff it.
expansion,
And
to grow, and expansion. We've always promised to,
Right.
we said 120, that was always our goal. We're holding in that 50 to 60 range for 6 years now.
But not to hold, to grow.
We want to
Right,
grow it.
so
Oh, no,
that's what you asked. So, no,
I was one of the supporters of it, saying,
Yeah, no.
as long as we could grow the program.
Yeah.
I just I feel bad that we have these students in a program that they're willing to take less on some areas because they believe, and they're actually saying, we like the program, we like the service, we're doing really well, we're flourishing, we're growing, we're doing all the things that you're supposed to do as a student and was expected of us, and now you're saying, well, you want to move the program. And I think the fear is you're physically moving the program back to where, in a location, a physical location, which I'm sure they'll be welcomed, and I'm not overly concerned about that. But it's the very place that they felt most uncomfortable, not for any particular reason.
It's a physical
Well,
space thing for
sure.
that, the reminder.
Because every one of us is different. We learn different as students. I couldn't sit in my chair, couldn't wait for recess, couldn't wait for the fire alarm or fire drills, couldn't wait for all those things. And then there were students that could sit there for 8 hours straight, and even if they didn't have lunch. And so here we are in an environment where we created this really comfortable environment where they're doing well. And now we're going to sort of pick them up and move. But I think what I understand is it's really a financial
Resources.
issue at this particular point. What is it specifically, just so that everyone knows, so we're on the same page? So what positions would we have to hire in order to be able to, let's just say we decide to keep the program where it is. What positions would we have to hire?
We would need, right off the bat, ELL teachers. We would need to expand special education from a BCBA, have some autism, have speech and language, maybe their own SPED coordinator, a few more teachers. Carrie definitely needs paras and tutors. She has 24 IEPs, adverse student population. So we need to make sure that all of their needs are met.
But they say, what's interesting is that they're coming here saying, but you're meeting all my needs. We're doing really well. Like, we're doing so well that, we're happy. We're like happy students. That's the confusing part of it. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it just, I understand. I have all confidence in you and our principals and Carrie and everybody. It's just, I don't know, I try to listen to both sides, but I feel a little uncomfortable in the sense that they're saying, they may really like this. This is a product we like. And we're saying, yeah, but we can service you better. And they're like, well, maybe we might want to trade off a little bit on that. And I just remember when we were trying to make the argument to build a smaller school, the state was saying to us, you have to build Skyview as a huge school. And we said, yeah, but we don't want to build a big school. We'd rather build either 2 small schools or, that's just too many middle school students in one environment. And they said, no, it's much better to get bigger court facilities like media center and the gyms. And yet, to this day, I still think that middle school students would learn much better in a smaller environment. But yeah, they got a bigger gym and a bigger cafeteria and some of those fancy things, but that's still just my personal belief. So, okay, my question is, but I have all the confidence in the world in that. The other question is, how can we have room? I thought we were like bursting at the seams and we didn't have any room and we needed to expand the CTE programs.
So if I can just speak to that a little bit, there was a concern, and so one of the things, and to once again speak to the thankful for the carts, we have I think we have 3 computer labs in the media center, which really, we don't need computer labs anymore because the computers go to them as opposed to kids packing up and going to the computer lab. So we would convert those 3 computer labs into the TV studio and the academic learning center. We would utilize that.
Mr. Mayor, since you brought it up, we do have a plan to expand CTI. We've drawn up some initial plans through our drafting department. We have them posted on our bulletin boards, and I'd love for you to take a look at them, see what you think. Because in order for us to do that, we need funds.
Everyone looks at me like, I'm in the money. Why is my name synonymous with
You
money?
opened it up, my
How
friend.
come it can't be?
You
Just
opened it up,
saying,
and
just
he's the
saying.
way he's giving you the answer. You
How
asked
come
for
it
it, you
can't
got
be
it.
something else? Why can't I be synonymous here?
They're also good at advocating for their schools, and I just want to point that out, that every one of them, every one of our administrators for whatever building or school are always so good at sitting here and throwing in what they need us to hear, and I just, so thank you.
George, kudos, trifecta right there. Donna?
First, I want to agree with the mayor on the presentations that students have come to us and have given to us, not only coming to meetings here and addressing us, but also in sending us emails. I received several emails from students expressing their concern about LCE, and I appreciated that. It gave me an insight of what you're doing. I have been to your school. I've seen it. I believe in the program. I think Big Picture Learning offers a wonderful opportunity for all types of students. With that being said, I also look at some of the things that were addressed on support staff having to be hired. One of the things is you wouldn't have to hire a secretary. You'd have the opportunity of using the secretaries at the high school to be able to accommodate your attendance needs and any other needs, the same with the nursing program and those. And, you know, I looked at the task force that was implemented and their report. I still have mixed feelings about moving it to the high school, but I do think it would offer a lot of opportunities that students might not be aware of until they're actually here. And I agree that it will be 3 separate schools. I want to make sure that it continues to be 3 separate schools. I think the high school has done well to have 2 separate schools and welcome a 3rd one coming in.
Sue?
I just want to mention that 5 years ago, we would have voted to eliminate this program or this school. I mean, that's what we face. So I think it's really wonderful that the task force got together and supported the school and the integrity of the school. That's telling me that it's successful. Whereas 5 years ago, there was a lot of controversy around it. So that's one thing. I think the other thing I'm thinking about is, you know, these students in the school will be there maybe 4 years, maybe 3, whatever. But the population or the profile of these students is ever changing. 5 years ago, we didn't have special needs students or students on IEPs, and I'm hearing we do now. So, you know, very different.
There are students on IEPs.
There are now.
There always were.
Okay,
There
well,
always were.
I guess we were told there weren't or whatever, but, so I think that's another thing that plays into this transition is, and, you know, I understand it has to be separate, and I think the high school will do a great job of making that space separate and making it feel like it's a different building. And I think we have to give it a try, and to the point you made, Wendy, that you hope it expands. I think we all hope it expands, and you know what? Maybe down the road we do have to look at going somewhere else, but that's success.
I just was sharing what was, yeah.
No, I
moving
agree with
along
you.
a
I
long
think
way,
we
yeah.
all want it to be, you know, but all I'm saying is I think the success has been proven because everyone supports it, and that's an important milestone in my opinion.
Sue and I are a good example of that, because we were on opposite ends, and 5 years ago, on whether the program should even exist or not, and now, so
Correct.
Isma?
Yeah, I just want to echo Nona's and Dean's sentiments on the students who came and spoke and emailed us. They were incredibly eloquent and insightful, and we got a lot of information and heartfelt sentiments from them regarding this program and their school. I think that moving to the high school is something that obviously Steve and Dave are very excited about. I think that this program and school are fantastic. The 3 separate would be fantastic also. And I just want to add that I would like to see, based on what Paula is saying, the ELL and special ed and speech and language being used with LCE, because it certainly seems like they need those.
Could I just clarify? We do have a licensed special education teacher, and we're supported right now by the LHS SPED coordinator. I'm sorry, we have yes. And so we're actually completely in compliance on IEPs. And
We're just looking at additional resources.
At additional resources.
Cody?
So this has been tormenting me, truly, this issue, I gotta say. First of all, thank you to the 3 of you in the administration for putting together all of this detail, because that's something that is really important to us. Getting answers on so many of these open questions is absolutely vital to the process. With that being said, I'm still truly torn. You've heard many times tonight about how amazing these students are. It's true. They're amazing little advocates. And I gotta say, I guess I'm just struggling with the idea of moving the school for the same reason the mayor basically said, which is, the students are content with where they are. Why change it? Why change something that's not broken? With that being said, I have absolute confidence in the leadership team that's sitting before us. So I guess my only question really would be at this point is, what kind of expansion could we be looking at the high school if we were to move the program there? Do we have an idea of numbers?
I think that was the question I asked you. Is there room to grow in this space beyond what's there?
The space is double the space.
The classroom space is critical. It's quite a bit.
I think that we could have 4 classrooms in that space. Our model is one that we purposefully try and keep each advisory group to 15 or 16 students, because it's so individualized.
Right.
Each advisory really needs their own home base. So physically, I don't know how that, right, like I feel like we would max that out at the 60 that we have now, which is what the same, we built out the space that we have now at 98 Adams Street with the intention of putting 60 students in there.
Something that physical space-wise, I mentioned to Doug that he hadn't thought of, I hadn't thought of, but the kids mentioned, is there are no windows in any of these classroom spaces. And that was something they said, natural light and windows, something you don't necessarily think about while you're thinking about all these other big picture things like the services, but they'd be spending their time in classrooms with no windows. And to them, that was something they wanted us to be aware of.
My understanding though, that there are students in those rooms with no windows, particularly Steve's group that are there, all day long there. But when we did our tour, they talked about, being able to, sort of have the doors open and letting some light in, and being able to go outside and being able to sort of have some freedom of movement to other areas.
The question that Steve Dubs about what the kids were saying about windows, which is what made his brain go about, well, how can we accommodate that?
Yep.
So
People are thinking about that.
There are just things that we may not think about that, so we need to hear what they're saying. They think about things that we may not have ever thought of, like, for instance, windows, which got Steve to say, you asked Steve, right? He said about, McCaw, he said, well, when we were in here in the summer before they made that assumption, they would open for us. So, but it was something that nobody had really thought of until the kids said, hey, windows, light.
I think the other piece about programmatically expansion is that maybe they go out, we've talked about this, maybe not everybody goes out on the Tuesday, Friday, maybe, freshmen, sophomores go out Monday, Wednesday, junior, seniors go out Tuesday. I think we can be creative by expanding the program without necessarily expanding space.
Ron?
I was part of the task force along with Sue, right, Sue? And I attended classes and conferences with Eileen regarding these issues. And as Dean was saying and Nona was saying, the problem is, yes, it's been successful, and we want to maintain it successful. We want it to be sustainable. As it stands right now, at Adams, there's no sustainability possible because one, we're gonna have to renew the contract if we don't do this today. Secondly, we're all about expanding. I truly, humbly believe that if we bring it here, we're gonna have all the services intertwined here versus having to go like a shotgun effect over there. There's nothing wrong, but we are growing. The students with needs, it's a growing population that far exceeds even our smallest belief systems. We have to realize that, you know, as much as we don't want to think that there could be more kids with special needs, I'm here to tell you there's more. And we have to prepare ourselves. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. You can argue about the money being finite, the rooms being finite, but we have to be able to move on. We have to make it attractive. We have to grab the attention of the kids to make them want to come here, and also to protect them, and also to protect themselves when they get out there in real life. We cannot have them held in a cocoon, because when they break out of that cocoon, what happens?
They might turn out to be the exact kids they showed up to tonight, which is, to me, is the worst scenario.
Maybe not. Are you willing to gamble that? I'm not. We have to be able to teach them. We have to be able to. We can train them, teach them.
So
That's all.
And so I just want to bring things back. You know, just for me, I worked very hard on the committee, along with some of the folks that have been here long-term, to come up with an alternative, innovative school for students, because recognizing that everyone has, you know, different learning styles and different approaches to be successful. My concern was to make sure that it would maintain its integrity as a separate school. And I've heard a commitment from the superintendent, from the three principals, that everybody is invested in maintaining its separateness, as well as, you know, sort of the overall inclusiveness. But Leominster High School and Leominster, you know, CTEI have demonstrated their ability to maintain their separate identities and separate sort of different educational programs. LC has been doing that located separately. You've moved from Doyle Conservation Center to Adams Street. Change is hard. Folks weren't always thrilled with having to move from Doyle, but it was successful. This is yet another change, and I think if we can maintain the integrity in keeping it a separate school. Having the tour today, I was able to see exactly where the separate entrance would be. There would obviously need to be some build out of the space. NCTEI can assist with that to make it more sort of friendly, and making sure that the communities were separated and built in. So each of the advisories would have their own space and maintain that community. So I think those are things that are very important to the school, and it looks like those are issues that have been addressed. Has every issue been addressed? Probably not, because things are going to come up. But I think there's a willingness from all the parties to keep working and keep striving to make sure that all the needs are addressed. So having said that, everyone's had their chance. I would like to see if there's
someone willing to make a motion? And then we can move
I'll
forward.
make a motion that, however you want to state it, that we pass and vote. Pass.
To move LCE
Move
to
LCE
the high school?
from Adams to the high school with all the little side jobs that Doug was talking about. The renovating the rooms and everything.
Okay. And Sue has second. Any other thoughts, discussion, comments before we vote?
I would just like to put on the table as a consideration, if this passes, that we consider not rushing it, because when we moved from Doyle to Adams, there were unexpected delays with the build, which you never know until you start doing construction, what kind of things will happen. And then we ended up having to do a month-to-month with Doyle while those were dealt with, and then we moved the kids in the middle of the school year. So I would ask that if this vote passes, that we consider trying to get a one-year extension with Jim Whitney and do this deliberately and carefully, maybe have CTEI do the build out, but without rushing it and giving ourselves a deadline of over the summer, and then if problems arise, we're not ready on day one.
Okay. I think that would be something for us to consider later.
Yeah,
But at
I
this
just wanted
point,
to-
that's not the motion before us. Mike, did you have something to say?
I would say that I believe in people, not buildings. And I'm convinced by who we've heard, the students we've heard from, that they will continue to advocate for themselves. I feel like we can put them anywhere and they would make this a successful program.
All right, having said that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. There were 3 opposed and 6 in favor.
I never thought you two would ever agree with me. I want this voted for the record.
Yes,
For the
7:58
record,
on March
please.
4th.
Second time tonight.
Yes, March 4th, 2019, 7:58.
It's on
Cody
record.
Case and Wendy Anderson have agreed with the mayor.
There you go. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.
And we're going to move on to the E-rate discussion.
Yes, Mr. Maloney. Steve, do you need that one? No, this Steve, not you. So, You're always done.
That's why we, yeah. Does, just send me that info, please. Oh, I thought you were leaving. Sorry.
All right, Steve.
Good evening. I'll ask me to keep this to about 40 minutes or so I'll do my best.
He knows me better than that.
I could give you 2 hours and you still couldn't explain the E-rate.
No, I absolutely couldn't. You're absolutely right. And smarter people than I can't either, so that's why they have a lot of resources out there for people. So we were asked to give an update, and part of the conversation that we've been talking about is the current, so it's funding for the current year. So E-rate work that was done last year to apply for funding for the current year. And that's run into a few bumps, as you may know. And so the comptroller, through the purchasing agent, has asked for more information around that. So we asked some questions, was looking for some documentation, which was helpful for me. I learned more about the process, being new in this role. And so we resolved some of those questions and we provided some of the documentation. So that's a positive. This morning, we were informed that the questions have been answered and that we will sign off on payment for the current E-rate moving forward. So that's good news.
We have internet.
And our internet will be stable and on, which is good.
Okay, just need it on.
So that's the first thing that I want to say. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to refer
Steve,
to my
can I
notes
just-
for a minute.
Can I just
Sure.
ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
So we spend $300,000 a year on internet. So when we have like issues in the schools when we're drawing down on the bandwidth so much that Wi-Fi isn't working correctly. Can we use some of that money to offset that?
So if there's a disruption in service by the provider, we absolutely get credit back for
Okay.
that.
All right,
If it's an equipment malfunction on our end,
then you don't.
not so much.
Because do we have a problem with just so many devices drawing down in the system that we need to upgrade it?
You know, over the past few years, we've done some great work in terms of access points and hardware. So our wireless is pretty strong and pretty reliable. I don't believe I said that out loud, but
Throughout the system.
throughout the system.
Okay.
And there are some places that we're looking to test that, boost that. You know, there are some places that don't come in well. This is an area that I know in the past you've had some difficulties. And a night like this, really no difficulties, right? But one access point in this room, you fill it up with 100 people, all on their phone, people on laptops. That's where we run into trouble.
Okay.
It'll kick people
But
off.
overall, we're in good shape.
Overall, we are
Okay.
in good shape.
All right, thank you.
And so part of my role is going to be to evaluate site by site so that we can then determine future funding, future expenses, future projects. Okay, where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses, and that's going to be part of my role.
Thank you.
Okay, so the current process, we're currently looking at filing for E-rate funds for use next year. Okay, this is the last year of a 5-year funding cycle, and so one of the things that we're looking to do is to take a look at our internet package. A lot has changed since we came to an agreement. I believe that we may be able to get the same service for less money or greater service for the same money. And so one of the things, I don't know that for a fact, but I believe that. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're putting that back out there and see what kind of responses we get. So the current process just started in the last 2 months. We file a form, a 470, telling people that we're interested in doing that, and then companies have 28 days to ask questions, put a proposal together. Those come in, we evaluate those. So that's part one. That's category 1 funding from E-rate, and so that's our intent. I don't see a lot of risk for us. Like I said, I'm thinking that it will be similar in price for better service, which would be great. And that might, you know, the speed is pretty good right now, but that's a very rapidly changing industry. So the more the better. That's not always the case, but in internet speed it is. And then there's category 2 funding. And coming into this position, there's a lot going on. We have 11 sites. We have a lot of potential. So we're evaluating. I'm going to use this year, the remaining part of this year and the next year to evaluate where we are. That's what I talked about a little bit. So I didn't want to jump into projects that I don't have the data to tell us about projects. So one thing that we do need here at the high school is our, to complete our wireless, is to wire the rubber gymnasium. And you're like, well, why do you need wireless in the gymnasium? Oftentimes it's used for special events, but it's also used in academic ways. It's for a small example, and that's why I came to be involved. It was an extended time area for MCAS. So groups of students that needed more time, MCAS was untimed, that needed more time would go there. Well, that can't happen this year because there's no wireless there. So we have a backup plan. We go into the library, we move some other things around, but that would increase our functionality in the future. So that's a project that we put out there for category 2 funding for E-rate for next year. And then once we gather more information, we'll be able to look at what future possibilities there might be for E-rate. So 2 things on the radar now: internet and then wireless at the high school to complete this site. Okay. Questions?
Wendy? The upgrade you were talking about adding to the gym, the vote for LTE just passed, they're gonna be down in that area. Would that also help them to make sure that, because now you're adding another school there, they're gonna be using Chromebooks and wireless too, so with that,
Not directly, but the reports from our staff currently in that area have not indicated difficulties, to my knowledge.
just curious. Thank you.
We've asked reports back at each building to their building principals so that we can identify any areas that might be
So like dead
gaps or
zones.
dead zones. And we make sure we're not testing in those areas now for future expansion.
Okay, thank you.
Nona?
Did I understand what you said, that the E-rate situation in paying it was solved this morning?
Yes,
So something took 7 months, and this is no reflection on you, it took 7 months to get solved. Because we were talking about this last August, September. And it took 7 months to get solved, to the point that the company threatened to shut us off, threatened to shut down the internet. Just a comment, that I think it's really poor that it took that to get this situation solved, when it should have been solved back in the fall.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I just want to clarify that we spend about $66,500 on it, and the other 80% is paid by. There's a total of $300,000 more than that. But
You're only just paying a portion of it.
The E-rate reimbursement is discount basically.
Well, we, consumers, the taxpayers, or when I pay my cable bill, that goes towards E-rate, so yes. We pay it, somebody pays the rent. Steve, one of the problems I think that we saw early on was the difference in, and I don't know whether it was bid differently, but one is at $300 plus $100,000, and the other bidders were at 100. So one had firewall protection in it, and the other ones didn't. So I was a little bit confused as to, first of all, everything should have a firewall in it, right? We agree on that.
yes.
But did the bid just get put out, originally when it was put out, did they put the specifications out that it was optional to have a firewall in it? Because I can see where that's a big difference between 300,000 and 100,000. There's a huge difference. And that's leaving a lot of money on the table. So we paid this vendor $200,000 more. And obviously they had a firewall in it, but is the firewall worth $200,000? Is that why you think we could do better if we go back out to bid?
Not specifically, I wasn't here then, and I'm not aware of all the details of going out to bid and the actual specifics of that. I'm still catching up on some of those things. The firewalls are extremely important, obviously, and I don't know the total cost of that. There's equipment that needs to be leased, and then it's the management of that. So Addition Networks currently is the provider that we work with. So not only are they in charge of the equipment, but they're also managing that.
Right.
So if we have a problem, something gets through the firewall, we want to clean up maybe some language, some words that might not be being captured, I reach out to them, their technicians work on that issue. So it's not just a physical thing that we buy and put in there, it's a managed process, and I think that's where the price goes up. But my understanding is that two of the bids did not include all of the components, firewalls just being one of them. But there were other parts as well, so I'm not sure of the breakdown of that.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why $200,000, I mean, that's a lot of money.
And if we did not have, and if we did not have them manage it, then we would have to hire somebody else to be able to deal with all the problems and be able to fix whatever, troubleshoot.
Sure, we couldn't handle that in district, we would have to hire a company to do that.
So either
for
way,
us.
we would be outsourcing.
Well, we don't know, hold on, we don't know that. Two companies bid with it, if the bid says that you have to have a firewall, why would two other companies not bid it in there? It's very clear.
Well, I'm not talking about the firewall, I'm talking about the management
Well,
piece of it.
if we put that in the bid, And that goes out to everybody, we'll find out exactly what the cost is, because they'll break it down, what the cost of managing is. We may want to manage it ourselves, we may want to have a company like ClearCon manage it for us, because it manages the whole other system. So we don't know what the breakdown is of that amount of money, and what that extra cost was to have that management piece in it, or was it just that this consortium that we're involved with handles everything, and we just said, hey, it's money that comes in, we put in 65,000, and, you know, and they take care of it all, we get internet, so we're fine. That's what I think we need to find out.
Yeah,
You might be able to do
We're in a different spot
Yes,
than we were.
yes.
There was, there's a technology department now, it's small, there's two of us. Then we have in-building people as well, so 6 people in buildings. And we're working at it. It's a very complex process and very complicated. I work with a colleague in the neighboring town who is very skilled and has been doing this a long time, who also works with a consultant, because that's important to make sure that you're meeting deadlines and filing the right paperwork and those kind of things. And then it's that technical piece that becomes challenging.
Mike and then Ron?
Yeah, it was more than just the firewall. It's the bids from, two bids that weren't accepted, it's my understanding, were really non-responsive to what we asked for. We had 11 lines, one only offered one. It wasn't just the firewall. It's not clear to me whether that's because they just weren't interested.
I don't know either. Right.
We weren't
I
clear
agree.
enough in our bids, so I
Yes.
do agree going forward, we should make sure we work, which I believe we're doing, work with the purchasing agent, to make sure that this is specified clearly, so we get bids that are actually for the same thing. But it's pretty clear that the two bids we did take this year were cheaper, but also were not bids for what we were actually asking for.
Thank you, Mike. Ron?
My question. You said you were looking at 2 or 3 other companies? 2 companies?
It could be as many as big.
All right. I sometimes, everyone's talking about firewalls. What about the portals? Because the more devices you have, the more cluttered the portal is. If you get a bigger portal, they can go in quicker. Am I right or am I wrong?
So some of our strengths, we have fiber.
Fiber optics?
Fiber between buildings, which greatly helps the amount of traffic that can go from one building to the other. And then speed. So those kinds of things will be part of the bid going for more services. We may be able to, so the fiber will handle increased speed. So we need to see if they can provide us increased speed at a rate we would want to pay or can afford.
Is there a limit to how much can go in the portals?
I don't know.
Is there a limit to the speed?
Well, there's a financial limit to the speed. You can increase the speed, but at a cost. And the higher speed at this point, the cost at the very top is very expensive because that's the newest technology. So it's kind of like your home. You take a look at your internet package and you say, okay, this is the speed I need. I'm going to have 4 or 5 devices on at a time, and I can afford that. Sure, I could have 100 devices on my home plan, but I don't need that, or I can't afford that. So that'll be part of the evaluation of the bids that come in. And what we put out there was a range. So we put a range of speed, and then they'll respond to that, and we'll pick what suits our needs at the time.
I guess basically what I'm asking, the portal, it always goes back to every time, wherever I go with my laptop and my cell phone, the first thing I always hear is, our portals are too small, and we have so many good.
I'm not sure, and this may be my inexperience, I'm not sure what exactly you're referring to, so.
When they say how many devices that are going in and out.
Yeah, no, I understand that part of it, but I don't know.
You're getting ready to say something.
No, I just don't know what the portal is.
What's his name? Glenn.
Nope.
Just remember, Ron, far longer than the internet. Batman, Superman said, faster than the speed of light.
I realize that, but it's always been the pet peeve, the portal.
Right.
How many
And I'm
delays?
sure they'll
Because we're
be
talking
dealing
about
with
getting
that.
all these devices, and we're checking with all these companies. But I'm sorry if I asked a bad question.
Well,
We
you
need
didn't,
to-
but I
we
think
need
the
to
bids
know
are going to
what the-
figure
what
that
the-
out, how
what the
many.
capabilities
You didn't
are.
ask that question, I'm just saying, I don't know the answer to that.
The E-rate issue,
Yes.
do you see that happening again?
I think we have better resources in place now, and we have a plan for better communication, so I hope to,
Okay, and I want to
Not have
clarify
that
that
happen again.
I believe the E-rate situation was held up at City Hall, not with us.
Well, we had-
We did our due diligence in filling out the correct paperwork once we knew what we had to do, and we did that in a timely fashion to get it done, and we still were waiting.
I worked with the purchasing agent, and we worked very hard to take care of that, and he was extremely helpful during that process.
Glad it got solved.
Wendy,
That is
last
mine.
quick question I have.
Yes.
So we're all set for testing next week, right?
Yeah.
We have all our buildings, we're all ready for testing?
We're very excited about testing.
Very excited. Okay, you guys are excited.
Steve's not sleeping, he's not sleeping.
But we're all good and set to go.
So we've done a few practice trials in place of, ahead of the practice. So, the practice is an infrastructure trial. We're testing our servers, we're testing our proper caching, information back and forth, and we're testing our devices, we're testing the adults. We're not really testing students, but we're allowing students to become more comfortable with the process. Can they call up the calculator? Can they use the highlighter? Those kinds of things, so when the actual test is there, teachers are more comfortable, students are more comfortable, and we have a few weeks after the trial to work on any technology issues that we have. But it also is supervision issues. What happens when Johnny needs to use the restroom? He logs off, teacher has to log him back in, who's watching in the hallway, those kinds of things. So it's really a dry run.
So it's more than infrastructure.
Yeah. And we've been telling students that, this isn't a test on you, it's a practice. So if there's 17 questions, you get done 8, perfect, that's fine. We're not testing you, it's a familiarity, and hopefully we'll get some good information back. Last year, we tested, we realized that there were some dead spots at the school, so we did some modifications to the schedule so that that room wasn't being used for testing. And we had some internet brought in because our wireless wasn't where it is now. And so we made some changes between the trial and the actual test. And so that things will happen, but things happened before when we were paper and pencil. So you could just test window?
Yeah.
End of March until mid-May. Oh, first week of June. High school, yes.
Thank
So
you.
it's a large window, and we're very excited about it.
I think if you said it one more time, yeah, I believe it.
Yes, very excited. Thank you, Skip, we appreciate your.
Steve, one last question. So, we were using, Claycom, you were using the same company. What happened, you have to go back out the bid for that?
So, we're using a company for managed IT services, and we had reached, we were approaching the $10,000 part. So we solicited bids, we're in the process of taking a look at the bids. That will be a little process, a little period of time from now until the end of the school year. And I'm working with the purchasing agent to put a bid together for the next school year, an option in the future. My advice I've been getting is, there's a lot of work we need to do around our infrastructure and get a handle on that, and having good success with a managed IT company at the city side. And so we're gonna use that, and that's going to allow us to evaluate our needs, some of them that we talked about earlier. So that's where we are right now. We've asked for bids for a short window between now and the end of the school year. We're gonna review those, and I'm not sure where it will be.
Okay, thanks. As long as we're protected on
Just one
that.
small other question. The contract, Is it gonna be a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year?
So we're doing the short one until the end of the school year. The next one where we go out to bid, we're gonna model it the same way that the city had. So it's a 1-year contract with our option for a following year and potentially our option for a following year. So if we're pleased with the services, we can continue it without going back out to bid. It's already built in. If that's not the way we want to go, we want to hire a technician back in, maybe 2, then we'll look at that, but we'll be in control of that. So 1 year with option years.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
We're going to move on to alumni field updates, so Dave, you can come on up. Mr. Palazzi.
Hello, everybody. How you guys doing? Coach, sorry I don't have a PowerPoint that nobody can see.
Don't apologize.
The tie makes up for it.
Just wanted to come down here and just, thanks for having me here to explain where we are in the process of Alumni Field. Kind of just go over where we were last summer with the plans. I took a look at the plans along with Dobzinski, the mayor, Superintendent Deacon. She was involved downtown. We really wanted to maximize the space behind the high school with as many turf fields as we can. A lot of the schools today have a main turf field. They also have an additional turf field, so we could maximize our sports teams. So we went ahead last fall and changed the plans to add another full-size turf field. So the plans have a track in the back with a full-size turf field inside the track. And then we have another turf field at the lower field. I do have the new plans here that you guys can take a look at afterwards if you'd like. So we'll have two of the turf fields, and along with that, we had to send the plans back out. They came back. We had extensive meetings. The mayor had extensive meetings with the surrounding neighbors in regards to the fields and everything like that. So it's moving right along. We just presented before the city council a few weeks back. I think some of the members were there and just explained the whole process. And I guess where we're at now is, more of the logistical things with the architectural design and really creating those plans so they're ready to be sent out for permits and bidding and things like that. That's something the mayor could probably comment a little bit on that. But that's going to be a process, obviously with the hopes to get started this year in the field, but, we don't know where that will take us with some of the bidding and the permits and things like that.
Anybody have any questions or go ahead, Nona?
Maybe the mayor can answer this. I know you had a meeting, I think about a month ago with the residents. I unfortunately could not be there at that meeting. How did that come out?
Well, initially, just so everybody sort of understands it, we met with the neighbors, understanding this would have some impact. And we had a couple meetings. One was actually door to door, and we had a couple other ones sort of in different locations. But so we took down a list of all of their concerns, and we went back to the drawing board, and and in this plan addressed every single one of them to the best of our abilities. There were some things we could do and other things we couldn't. We had to make further changes, and Coach did a great job coming up with this new concept. So it took us a little longer because we had to go back, and that meant some changes to what the impact would be to the neighbor. So we did those. So that took a little longer. So at this point, I can say safely, we've done everything possible for the neighbors that we could. So I think in the last meeting, we were, I think they were, I don't want to speak for them, but I think the message I got was they were satisfied that we did our due diligence in the sense that we did everything possible to mitigate and address their concerns. So that's why we moved to the city council, and they were comfortable, and now we'll start
Because I know
getting
this
everything ready.
was proposed, they had all kinds of concerns.
Yep, and one by one. And it took us a long time, a lot longer than we wanted, but we want to be good neighbors. We stressed that from the very beginning. We want to have good hardship, we want to be good neighbors. and vice versa. And so, so now, as the coach was saying, we have to go through the permitting process like any other project. So we have the documents we need to get to that point. And there may be some changes along the way because it's a really wet site, and that's fine. And then once all those reports are back and all the boards have had a chance to look at them, then we'll put the final documents together and put all the detailed plans together and get ready, as you said, to go out to bid.
How long do we think this process would take before we can go out to bid? Any?
I don't want, every time I put something on, say, hey, we think it's gonna be, somebody will call me and say, you said it was gonna be. So I think the rest of this year we'll work on, yeah, I mean, maybe move faster, but we'll work on the permitting and the final documents and get it out to bid. If we're lucky enough to get it all done, we'll start construction later part of this year. If not, then we'll start in spring.
Curiosity on my part, Dave. If the fields are not being used by high school teams, can, the general citizen come up and walk around the track, or?
I think we had that discussion. I mean, it's taxpayers' money, and, the fields that we have right now, they're really unusable. But this facility is going to be an exciting facility for the whole city of Leominster. Obviously, there'll be cameras up there, there'll be police looking at the field, and I think when you start to talk about people getting nervous that the field is going to be rushed by many people at night and things like that, I don't think you're going to see that. I think it's going to be utilized by the city of Leominster and the younger kids, and to utilize the field kind of like we do with Doyle Field.
So one thing I would just mention, because it was in the original plan, was that the softball field is not included in the revised plan because of the second field. Just to throw that out there for folks in the audience who might not have understood that.
Yeah,
So.
the original, I mean, the thought behind it, and I've thought a lot, very deeply about this. I went to this high school. The number of disadvantages that our student athletes have now that they overcome just with not having a field behind the high school. And my thought was trying to maximize the number of teams that can practice back there. You can still have baseball back there on that lower turf field. Practicing softball can practice on the lower turf field. You're now going to have 11 teams, boys and girls soccer, varsity JV, field hockey, lacrosse, both teams, and now you have 2 fields where you can set up a structure where the varsity goes out at 2:30 to practice, the JV's inside, whether they're lifting in the weight room, whether they're getting extra help, those types of things that we've never been able to do. I mean, many of my football players don't do track because they have to lift. And they have to be down at Doyle Field, there's no weight room. Most other high schools, the track's right outside the weight room, they can jump back and forth, and you can set some things up like that. So when you really think about the field and the number of student athletes that are going to be able to utilize that field, I think with the other field, it would maximize our efforts and just open it up to do a lot of different things in the future for, all of our student athletes.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? All right, great. Thank you for updating us and keep us updated as we move forward.
Yeah, that snap, would you be able to put it on the web? So everybody and mother son to look at it?
Maybe CTE might have to do
Yeah.
that one.
Can it be not? No?
We'll
Yes?
ask Bob to build it.
Yeah, we can get that done.
That's, you've never
Back
heard
that
of that
statement.
one.
No, you'll never.
No, that's a good one. All right, now we're moving on to the HR report. Yes, we just included our monthly report. As you can see, it's really about replacement positions now. There's a big turnover, and it's consistent, but here we are in March right now, and Dr. Riley's office is watching everything that comes in and goes out. So he will continue to provide this report on a monthly basis, and if you have any questions, he's there right now. Mr. Riley? So he's keeping a very close watch on this. Right. We're coming down to the end of FY19, so we're being very cautious, yes.
The first thing hit me in the head. Do we have a grant writer yet for the district?
We call her Lorraine Cipolla.
Well, no, I'm just asking.
Yeah, Lorraine does most of our grants, yes.
Because I know that's been a sore thumb for a long
Yeah, in past years.
Well, you never sat down with Lorraine, because let me tell
You get
you,
to that.
she leaves no stone unturned.
No, absolutely. All right, we're gonna move on to subcommittee reports.
Okay,
Is there-
can I just ask you, HR, in different times of different years, we've had difficult times finding certain qualified people for certain things. Are you running into that with the sort of labor shortage? At this point, is it, are you having that?
How's everyone doing?
Good.
I think there's always particular positions that are tough to fill. I can say that sometimes it's really curious, it depends on the time of year. I can say, for example, if they've just had some good success holding middle school science interviews, and sometimes those are
Hard to get,
challenging. And so, yeah, we continue to run into it. I can honestly say that we haven't done the proactive work that I'm hoping to do as I continue my work here, to really look at getting as many qualified applicants in for those more difficult positions to fill. I had spoken earlier too, I'm really interested in us continuing to work out a diverse workforce that better reflects our students as well. So those are the things that are certainly on the agenda as we move forward and continue our work here. But I have to say, I do feel like overall the principals, all the administrators have done an outstanding job in attracting qualified candidates, and I think we have a really nice group of first-year teachers that are doing a wonderful job. So overall, I think.
Oh, good, that's good.
Jim, what's the most difficult position you find?
It really depends on the level, and so I think if, you talk to Dr. Dubzinski, for them, at times, it's the science, and so you may like, physics teachers at times, maybe a challenge. And so, but at a different level, middle school actually is probably science as well. We usually actually are really lucky in that we have a lot of qualified applicants for the elementary and early childhood level. So it really, it's not really here, but I would say in particular, I'd say particularly probably around the science position is the most difficult candidate.
And that's because?
Just the number of applicants, to be honest with you. Not as many people go into it at times, and those are highly sought after positions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, finance subcommittee? Oh, I'm sorry, policy.
We have our first meeting of the new year coming up, weather and holidays and breaks, and we will be reviewing some changes to our health policy at that meeting.
Thank you. Mike, for finance?
Finance has met twice since the last school committee meeting. We've been reviewing the state of the budget and having some preliminary discussion for the budget going forward. So the read of that is coming up. We have some warrants and transfers, but it does not appear to me that they're in the school committee packet, so I think we have to put those off until it's time to approve. Correct?
Is there anything in an emergency that would have to be
Were
done?
they sent to us electronically, I thought?
Oh,
We have
everybody has
electronic,
one.
but
They
not
came in
here.
Glenn's,
All
right?
Yes.
We had gotten
Is there any
electronically.
emergencies in there
You all received.
that we need to?
Well, we did get them electronically from Glenn.
Right. Anybody want to use my laptop to get them? They're right here.
They have them.
We have them if we want to put them
Yeah,
So if electronically is sufficient, we
Yeah.
can.
People should review them.
Move to accept warrants. Okay.
You want to do the warrants or do you want to do the transfers?
We can do, you got both electronically? Everybody got them?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
We should probably do the.
I was looking at it earlier.
You do the transfers over the warrants.
Is that the final register? Here it is. So you had 3 transfer requests. One was a transfer of $65,620.20 from line item 1410 to 3200. This one was to fund an additional nurse position. And $95,627.75 from 4 line items, 1410, 1450, 2224, 5150, to plan in 2710. This is mostly to fund an additional counselor position.
Wait, where is that?
The second request, $751.08. What does it say on the second request, which line items we're taking from?
It's not a transfer, it's just a funding request from school choice.
All right, this was the school choice, right. All right, so we had yeah, this is one that totaled 6,000 something, correct? So we request, the school department requested that we authorize spending $751.08 from school choice on administrative costs, $3,541.84 for teacher salary expenses, and $2,100 for Clearcom IT charges. Do you want them all together, or do you want to go one by one?
I think all together.
Request number 3 is to transfer $29,600 from line 2324 to 2210. This is really just properly reclassifying an existing position. We have a long-term sub who is acting in effectively a school leadership position, the way it does the house things. So the request is to take the the same $29,600 that's currently being paid out of the long-term sub line and put the leadership line, because that's how it tends to account for. Finance approved these, it's our recommendation of the full school committee.
So would you like to make a motion?
So I do move that we approve these.
I'll second. Second, Sue. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Can I just ask a follow-up? So the 2 positions that we're creating, those are new positions, or are they just, were they part-time now, full-time? Or? Oh, just replacements. So we're not creating a new counselor, right? Okay. Thank you.
Nona?
I'd like to present the warrants. Warrant 31 for $2,359,362.45. Warrant 32 for $147,685.81. Warrant 33 for $5,783,897.34. Warrant 34 for $807,740.94. And out of the grant and revolving funds, warrant 31 for $197,280.41. Warrant 32 for $6,553.92. Warrant 33 for $179,500.11. And warrant 34 for $311,207.82.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to approval of the minutes for
I'd
February
just
4th.
like to mention that we have on the calendar a finance subcommittee meeting for a week from tomorrow. We moved it from 6:30 to 7 o'clock, so we would have time to go.
Oh!
to the-
That I know, there's a thing flying around.
What is it?
It's like a bee or
Like a
something.
It's down on the
Winter.
ground.
Step on it, step on it, just step on it.
Well, no, it's just, I think it was,
Tight leg?
no, right here. Yeah, you got it?
Okay, little excitement, but go ahead.
The school art show opens at City Hall at 6 o'clock, from tomorrow. And so we moved our finance meeting, we started at 7 p.m. instead of 6:30, so we had a chance to go to the opening and walk over the school from the start at 7.
Great. Chris, can you just make sure that that's updated, posted? Yeah. Thank you. All right, moving on to the approval of minutes, Wendy?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from Monday, February 4th, 2019.
Any, thank you. Any corrections, omissions, comments? Yes, Wendy?
2 little corrections. On page 1, the parent who spoke, it's supposed to be Tree McReynolds, not Teresa. Her name is Tree.
Okay.
And on page 2, it's 3rd line from the bottom, says they felt the school waste, it should be lacked support.
third line from the bottom, oh,
Yep. That's it. That's all I know.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. And were there finance subcommittee minutes?
In here.
I don't see them in our thing, but I think they were in Glenn's packet. So would you like to make a motion? How about somebody from the finance committee to approve the,
So.
did you approve them in your meeting?
We approved the Tuesday, January 15th minutes.
This was February 19th?
We had two. Tuesday, January 15th, we moved to approve those as is. And the Tuesday, February 19th minutes, there were some corrections. We moved to approve those.
Okay, with the corrections, and you gave them to Chris?
Yes.
So can we have a second? Nona, all those in favor? All right, approved, motion carries. Action items? Is there any? Okay, old or new business? Wendy?
I just want to remind everybody, we're in March now, so the All City Musical is only a few weeks away. They're starting their rehearsals up at LHS, and they're very excited to put on Beauty and the Beast the last Friday and Saturday of the month, and come out and support our middle schoolers.
What, Isabel, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just wanted to echo Paula's sentiments in her superintendent's report of the Leominster High School Theater Company's production of The Girl in the White Pinafore. I got to see it on Saturday at their preliminary performance, and it was so moving and touching. So please go and see it on Tuesday and Thursday, and bring your tissues because you're going to need them. I also just wanted to recognize the 4 students who received All-Star Awards in that production, and they were Anya Sabin in her role as Mary Davis, Abby Waterhouse in her role as Amelia Davis, Chris George for technical direction, and Sarah Pollock for stage management. So congratulations to them.
Congratulations, that's wonderful. Nona?
I attended the Icicle Ball, and it was wonderful. The music is terrific. Singers, so impressed. If there was a young man that sang, and if you shut your eyes, you would have thought it was Michael Blueblood. It was terrific. Rory. Yes, and the young lady that sang was quite impressive. Just a wonderful evening, wonderful dinner. Wish I could have taken home what I didn't eat.
So no for next year, doggy bags.
Yeah,
It's really good.
and let me tell you, usually those dinners are chicken with something stuffed underneath it.
This was so good.
This was steak. It was impressive. A very nice evening. And I think all of you received an email concerning the Cultural Council inviting you to their reception in April. I think it's the first Saturday in April at the library to just showcase who received grants this year from the Cultural Council. I think it'd be nice to attend. And the LEF Foundation dinner on the 21st, and the art showcase at City Hall. Next Tuesday, yes.
I just wanted to just give a kudos out to the students at Leominster High School. I had the occasion to bring someone to Leominster High School that's in a wheelchair. And no matter when we come, there's always some student who rushes to open a door. And it just shows just how compassionate they are. And these are people that we don't necessarily know, and they're always just so gracious. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the students and just, their kindness and stuff, so appreciate it.
And I do think the seniors did appreciate the day off. With the exception.
I appreciated the picture that you posted.
Yeah.
With the exception of a few co-op students who were out earning money today.
One thing?
Yep.
So last week, we had a meeting up here with business members of the community and police officers and some economic development staff. And I think everybody, first of all, 80% of them had never been to the culinary program or eaten at the restaurant, so that was like a big hit. And they were extremely impressed. They were so thrilled. I wish they had more time to show them around, but they couldn't believe the kitchen here. They said it's as good, if not better, than other restaurants. And then I could only give them a quick tour of the rest of the programs here, but they were just blown away by it, and they were impressed. And I think we should probably try to do more of that, get the people from the business community into the schools to kind of show them what we have. Because they oftentimes don't really have a reason to come here. If it's not a son or a daughter or a grandchild, they just might not have a reason to come here. And because of our security, you just can't walk up the street and say, you know, take the tour. So they were really impressed. They said it at the meeting, but I got an email follow-up from every single person that was here, talking about how impressed they were with the students and the program and the facilities. So it was good.
That's great feedback. Anybody else? Sue?
So question for us, so on the LCE, what's our next? Is our goal is to implement it for September?
Around 20.
Okay.
So we'll sit down and start making plans now. The team had already sort of discussed the next steps, so we'll formalize those and bring them forward.
Okay. And I would just like to kind of follow up on what Wendy suggested, that if we foresee that it's not going to pan out, you know, that we can't get it implemented by September, that we do make a plan, we have a plan in place.
To be mindful.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, excellent. All right, motion to adjourn? I'll make a motion to adjourn. And Dean seconded?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.